I need a hard, uncomfortable chair. Hey, this is cute. In the library.
Imagine.
Okay, so I get punchy after hours.
All right, folks, it is 6 o'clock, assuming the camera is running. All right, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Would all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. There it is. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for dodging the raindrops to come tonight. Hopefully the weather steers clear now. We have the minutes of September 1st. What is the wish of the board?
Second.
I'm going to give it the name. We have a motion by Jeff and a second by Nate. Any changes to the minutes? None? All in favor? Aye. All right. Public comments. Let's see, a couple members of the public. Anybody have any comments?
Yes, I have some comments.
Let you go ahead first, just so you know, because I haven't seen you folks before. Public comments are your opportunity to address the board. It's not a question and answer or back and forth.
An answer.
Please let us know who you are so we can capture it for the minutes if you would.
My name is Bill Carbonell. I live on North Road, up that way to the north, number 170. I'm here today to talk to you about COVID-19, the school, and the safety of the kids. I know this board voted 3-2 to keep masks optional. I think that was a huge mistake. It continues to be even a bigger mistake. Yesterday, the epidemiologist of the state of New Hampshire said, oh, the kids in school ought to be masked. CDC has said that for weeks. And you folks haven't done anything. That disturbs me very, very much. I think your first responsibility as elected officials is to make sure the kids are safe. And I believe you're not doing that. That's why I'm here. I think that tonight you ought to vote to have masks mandatory. Now I know there are probably some of you here, maybe all of you, who say, oh no, I'm not gonna wear a mask and get mad. But when your kid gets sick, maybe dies, brings home something, you get sick, maybe die, you're gonna be happy? I doubt it. I really doubt that. So I think that you need to act in a positive way. If you don't, then I think you ought to resign. Amen.
Have any other comments from anybody else? Sir, if you could just let us know for the minutes.
All right, my name is Greg Whitmore. I live at 164 North Road. Let me just say, this is the first time I've ever been in this building. This is my daughter's second year at the school. I haven't been allowed to be in the building. So this is, that's kind of crazy when you think of it, all right? I'm coming down on the opposite side where I don't ever want to see my daughter wearing a mask. I looked at the mask matrix that was sent. So there's two versions which are identical. There is the Deerfield version, there's the county version. So other schools in SAU 53 decided to use county data. I don't understand the reasoning for it. It's done, okay? And because of that, masks were implemented in those schools. So I am concerned, I can't predict the future, what's gonna happen in this meeting, but I'm concerned that that's going to happen tonight, that people will say, let's use the county data. If you use the county data, I need masks for the rest of the year. I mean, if we're going by substantial, it was substantial since the beginning of summer. So I think we really have to look at the local level when we make these decisions. Let's see. Per CDC data, August 2020 to 2021, 1,790 kids in the country were hospitalized with COVID. 8 children died in the country. My daughter is more in danger when her mother drives her to school in the morning than dying from COVID. I mean, those are the numbers. Per New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services, since the pandemic started, there have been 29 children in the state hospitalized with COVID-19 with 0 deaths. So if we really want to say we're following scientific data, this is as clear, cut and dry as it gets, all right? I feel that adults are projecting fears upon children. It's been shown time and time again that children are not vectors, children are not spreading. You need to test children to know they even have it, because most of them don't even present with symptoms. So, you know, these are things we really have to take into consideration. If we come down and continue forcing masks, the people on the opposite sides of the fence are just getting more and more entrenched in this. You're not going to convince me that I want a mask on my child. You're not going to convince people who want masks to not have masks on their children. So at the end of the day, public choice or parent choice is what's important. I know what's best for my family and my child. I mean, we haven't had our ears covered and our eyes covered for the last year and a half. We've weighed every possibility. I've read every possible study there is. And I'm thoroughly convinced that my child is not in danger, but that's my choice. If other people want to mask their children, they can do whatever they want, right? I encourage them to mask their children if they want to, right? So we have to realize that, you know, these are our children. They're not community children, they're not the school's children, not the state's or the country's children. They belong to the parents, right? So please keep that in mind when we, you know, come together and come up with these decisions as far as masking is concerned. All right, and if I have any time left on a completely unrelated matter, I know you're going to be talking about high school choice. So I really hope that considerations are in place for Raymond. Raymond is starving for children. They are incredibly, you know, I mean, there's just so much space in this school. I think they're only at half capacity right now. So I don't know if it's been discussed, but please consider Raymond. Pembroke Academy is 300 or so, 250, 300 students under capacity also. So either of those schools, much closer, could absorb the Deerfield students. Honestly, I don't want my child going to Concord. The distance, and just what I've heard talking with other parents, I don't want them going there. You know, so I hope that you consider these other schools, consider giving parents and, you know, kids choice of school if possible. Could they go to Raymond? Could they go to PA? Could they go to Concord? Is that, you know, and parents just pay the difference tuition-wise if it comes up. And when you're looking at these contracts, could we consider shorter contracts? Instead of 10-year plus, could we do 5-year or, you know, whatever it may be. Thank you.
Any other citizens' comments? Go ahead.
Cooper, North Road.
Strong representation from North Road today.
We tried,
I
right?
think we've covered the whole stretch of it.
So this gentleman makes, I think, extremely valid points, and he says that, you know, I may not convince him, he may not convince me. I don't think it's going to change. I think that he is approaching it, and I'm not trying to sing the others. You made some really good points. He's doing what he thinks is best for his child. And conversely, I'm going to try to do what's best for my child. Where I think that I personally differ, and it's not at you, it's just that your points kind of align separately from where I'm at, is when you look at the data, I don't think we should look at necessarily county data either. Even if you look at just Deerfield, the standard for CDC high transmission is, I believe it's 100 per 100,000. And last time we were here at 7 cases, we were over that metric. Since then, we've gone from 7 to 18, floated back to 14. Wherever we're at, we're double the transmission when you take the county data out. So if you're looking locally, we're past it. As far as stats, you can look at stats a whole bunch of different ways, right? And so I try not to lean into them too much. You know, you have a higher likelihood of passing away if you go to the hospital if you're not feeling well. That's because you're not feeling well enough so that you go to the hospital. People that aren't that sick stay home, right? So stats can look a couple different ways. One of the stats that gets brought up is, you know, the mortality rate or the hospital rate for children is lower. It is lower in the grand scheme of things. it's higher for the adults. So one of the things you have to look at is, are they passing it along to the adults? Because the adults that are in the building with the children, they are also at risk. And we also have adults in the households at home. So while the child may not be affected, the immunocompromised grandparent or guardian that is with the child could be affected. And as far as using the car accident analogy, statistically you may not be wrong. Maybe it is safer to drive to school versus COVID. But the difference is if one student gets into a car accident, that car accident can't be caught by other students that are waiting in line. So we have to look at the transmission effect to it. I don't think there's necessarily an answer that's going to appease everyone, right? If you say that masks are going to be mandated, people are going to be upset. Conversely, on my side, I prefer that it's not optional. I wish my kids went to school, and it's not even so much because I think it's the safest thing. That's a big part of it. The main reason I really would like mask mandates is it's very hard to condition a child when not all the other children are under the same conditions, and also when those conditions are constantly changing. So my daughter's in kindergarten right now, and I've reached out to the teachers, they've done an admirable job. But when you go to recess, I tell my daughter, take the mask off, you're outside, enjoy it, right? Trying to follow the science the best I can. When you come back inside, put it on. And I have these conversations with her, and often it's, oh, I forgot to put it on, so I was in the hallway for a little bit. Well, how long? I'm not sure. How many people were there? I don't know. Do you exit from the classroom? I don't know. If you've ever tried to get details from a 5-year-old, it's I don't know. So we piece it out. So I reach out to the teacher explains that they're doing everything under their powers to accommodate. And so I have no fault to put on the teacher, but if the entire class was under the same condition, then it's a lot easier for that teacher to make that a focus of, hey guys, don't forget to put your mask on or take it off. It's a condition that's equal to everyone and it's easier to enforce. So on my side, whereas I don't want to put another parent in a position where they are being subjugated to something they don't like because that's what I'm currently under, my preference on that side would be to do so because it allows the children that are struggling with it, the younger demographic, to have some assistance. It also puts them in a position where they are in equal conditions with other kids so that the teachers that are having to enforce this, quote unquote, can do so in one fell swoop versus trying to make it an individual side. From there, once again, if we want to leave it up to parents' choice, the CDC guidance says 12 and under, you should be masking indoors. Or excuse me, 11 and under. 12 and over, if you're vaccine eligible, then it's really up to you. So let's not make it a vaccination status. I know that can't happen with the Department of Education guidelines. Let's base it off of age. Because if you're 11 or younger right now, you don't even have any other mitigation factor other than the mask. And then if you're wearing a mask and 70% of your class aren't, it takes away some of the efficacy of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Any other citizens' comments? We've exhausted the citizens here. All right, agenda review. Do we have any items we need to add to the agenda? Feel free.
Can we please add visitors to the school?
Visitors? After Gene's at work? Okay, Nate, what do you have, sir?
High school communication
What do you want to put it?
for the age,
H,
or could be
Visitors is age.
previous and continuing.
you want to add that to, well, let's just put it in I. All right, high school. What are we doing, Nate? High school?
High school communication.
All right. Anybody else? Do we need to, for consent items?
Sir? No. Your phone? Hey.
Jeez, Keith can't get anywhere with it.
You wouldn't have gotten far. Thanks, sir. All right, no consent?
No.
Okay. And we have, let's see. I don't actually recall sending emails over the last few weeks.
I think you had one.
Mask related. Okay. I think we're gonna beat that horse to death again tonight, shortly. And we're gonna continue to beat the horse. All right, so let's go on to letter E, mask matrix. What's the new send? Down. Alrighty.
I
Patty,
updated
join us for a
your
walk.
numbers yesterday, knowing full well they may have changed today, but I try to do it within 24 hours of your meeting.
the first page has the county data and the Deerfield data. That hasn't changed. Using the CDC metric, it would indicate that both county and community are in the universal masking category under the substantial levels of transmission. The third page will just show you how we calculate that, and that is by dividing the number of cases divided by the Deerfield population times 100,000, and that puts us at 429.9. So 100 is considered substantial, Deerfield is at 429 or 430. Say that again?
Almost 5 times as much.
Correct.
4.3.
Almost, we'll write it down.
And then, so back to page 2, current information, Rockingham County, as we just said, is substantial. Active cases in Deerfield currently is 13. The number of cases in the Deerfield Community School is 0. The percent of the population fully vaccinated went up a teeny bit to 52.1.
I think earlier today, Deerfield was at 14 for active, right?
You check it every 10 minutes.
It's just on my desktop.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
check it once a day. So, we currently have a plan in place, are we sticking with that, or are we gonna discuss this one? Jeffrey?
I would like to make a motion that we make masks mandatory at DCS with the option to review it at our next school board meeting.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Nate. Jeff, it's your motion, so talk about it.
Yeah, so last meeting, we were at 7 cases, the meeting before that we were at 4. And for anyone, if anyone's listening to this, this is something that I personally spend hours per day thinking about in my head, what the right thing to do is. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a public health policy expert. I've often said I wish the state would just step in and not kick this can to us, but they have, here we are. I think that, I don't believe that the right move is following their matrix and waiting until Deerfield gets down to 4. What that right number is, but I know that from our last meeting, when cases went from 7 to 18, I realized that, this is still a virus that's out there and can spread like wildfire. I don't know where that cluster broke out, we don't get that data, but there it happened and we had no ability to, make changes board. Given that we're still at 14 cases, I think it's the appropriate thing to do. And for the people in the public that are gonna be frustrated, I just have to say that, this is not about trying to muzzle kids or control them. I have kids that go to the school and I worry about them and I worry about any kids that might catch COVID. Kids that are 11 and under don't have, we don't have the social distancing we need for them. And this is what we can do to protect them at this time, and for that reason, I feel it's the right move for this school.
I'd like to agree with Jeff. I think that's a key point, and I think that more than that, it's not about just the kids in our school. I think it's about the community, and I think that there are people at home in our community who, like the 11 and unders, can't get vaccinated, even those that are people who are older than 12 years old. And to those grandparents and caregivers and guardians at home, to have their child be bringing a virus home to them is not something that I want to be responsible for. I would rather take the precautions to protect our kids in our school and also the members of our community who we can look out for.
I just want to acknowledge how difficult this decision is for the 5 of us every single week. This decision is so difficult, and I want to thank Jeff for bringing that motion forward. And it is every single day, I agree with Jeff, it's every single day that, and probably all of us as board members spend time giving hours over to looking at data, research, case studies in other states, so on and so forth. So I would like to also say that I support that motion. And at the same time, it breaks my heart in some ways, because I know that it's a difficult decision. I think about tiny little children with masks on and not seeing their teachers' faces and so on and so forth. But as I continue to weigh that and look at the data, nothing is saying that the Delta variant is, no data that I see is saying that the variant is going down, that there is any plateaus or in sight. And we are not yet in the everybody's in their house with the windows closed piece. So I just wanted to say that I am in favor and support that, as difficult as the decision is, as very difficult as the decision is, I support it.
Andy, go ahead.
So I guess I don't support the motion. Some of the language that I'm hearing is around worrying about, the children catching COVID. I don't see the data to support that. And I obviously hear both perspectives on the subject. I also see the data, to support both of the perspectives that I'm hearing about. But I understand that different families have different living scenarios and people at risk within their circles. At the beginning of COVID, my family chose to reduce our circle to a limited number of people to protect ourselves. We made that decision as a family. So I believe if I can make that decision as a father and a husband for my children and my family, that others can make those decisions for their families, and I don't want to be the person to tell them what to do.
What's, well, Kristen, this is probably more directed at you, but what's the sense inside the school with the staff? Do you have a kind of a pulse on where they are in this?
So I put together a survey from Ask Input in terms of, and it was just, again, super simple. Do you feel that we should transition to having to wear masks while in school, or do you feel like we should continue to have masks optional? And 58% said, yes, I would like to staff and students to wear masks while in school, and 42% said no. I'd like to remain optional, keep it optional. It's really close to call. I do wish that I had asked for grade level, because I think you're gonna find more yeses and nos at a certain grade level, elementary versus middle school. And I think that everybody, I did add an opportunity for people to put comments, just to see where people were at, and a lot of people, even people who said, everybody has their reasons why they want it or they don't want it. It's a very tough call right now. I don't want this decision to be placed on my staff, though. I don't think that I want that message out in the community that, well, the staff wants it, so.
No, and
Right, and I'm just, making sure that that's clear. I want the board to make the decision that they think is best for our community, and we will support you 100%. And the staff will support you, I know that they will. It's a heavy, heavy decision. Everybody feels very strongly one way or the other, and there's no right answer, absolutely no right answer. Bonnie Heisey feels still pretty strongly that it's not if, it's when. We have the Deerfield Fair coming up pretty soon, and I'm more worried about that than
I'm all for canceling the fair. I'm fine with
that.
that. No. I'll take the reduction in traffic for a weekend. I don't need any Friday. Nate, you had your hand up.
I was gonna ask about the nurse and you answered.
So, my thoughts on this, I agree more with Andy on this. And I have said all along that it's not gonna be a matter of if, it's gonna be a when. It's just when does when occur. So for me, we look at this, matrix, right? And we apply either county data or town data to it, but we're not looking at the school's data. So when you look at it, it is it starts with sporadic cases without evidence of facility transmission. Those are cases within the school. There isn't any. Leaving them optional. The choice is still there. We put in place a mechanism, so if there's a single case, we start targeted masking. We put in place a mechanism so that if you have multiple cases, you universally mask. It has a clear beginning and a clear end. It has a defined beginning and it has a defined end. I don't see a situation where we are not gonna be able to stop COVID from entering the building. It's coming in at some point. For me, I've looked at this continually as, because I know we're not gonna stop it, I wanna have as much normalcy as I can prior to us having to drop much heavier mechanism in place. I'm not entirely convinced that the masking isn't gonna prevent it from coming. If we go fully masking tomorrow, you're still gonna have a situation where COVID comes in the building. It's an inevitability, right? And so I don't support it, partially because I hate the undefined beginning and the undefined end. And I've been fairly, I think, clear about that all along. If there was a scientific bit, I thought we made a good step at the last meeting about putting a beginning and an end and a start and a stop and trigger points. But most certainly, we're gonna vote on it. And the beauty with the way the system works is 5 people sitting here, 3 make a decision, and we're gonna move on, and I'm gonna be done talking about it. So, Jeff,
Am I able to clarify my motion for the start date?
yes,
So I'd like to have it effective Friday to give teachers a chance to notify students tomorrow. And I would also like to make it indoor masking. When they're in the outdoor classrooms or recessed, masks optional.
So is that an amendment?
Yes.
that's a second. All right, so we need to vote on the amendment first. So the amendment to the motion is for masking to start on Friday. We'll call it universal masking to start on Friday and for it to be indoors only. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? 3-2, the motion carries. With the amended language, the motion carries. Any more discussion regarding the motion as amended? None? All right, all in favor of the motion to require masks starting on Friday, be reviewed at every board meeting
Aye.
while indoors? Three, two, I'm assuming Andy, 2? All right, it is what it is, I'm done talking about it. Let the staff know,
I will, and I'll get a message out to the community ASAP.
tell them to direct their anger at us, good or bad, or whatever it is. Okay, next up. NHSBA proposal, is that time of year again?
Mm-hmm. Well, they've moved it to October, so.
I felt out of place.
Yeah.
Okay, NHSBA proposed resolutions, I believe, Andy, are you our rep or is it Juju? Andy,
I'm sorry, say again?
you are our NHSBA delegate? I think you won that role, we're gonna talk about resolutions.
I don't have anything to cover.
I think Patty does.
Yes, you do.
Well-
So as the delegate, just a reminder, whoever your delegate is, takes your vote and brings it forward to the delegate assembly and is responsible for representing your board. So the school board association asks that this board vote on each of the proposed resolutions, and that gives Andy direction on how he should vote at the delegate assembly. It's been moved a couple of times, and this year it's gonna be in October, I think the 16th. Andy, do you have it in your calendar? I think it's the 16th.
I don't, but I'm checking.
But whenever, it's coming up, so this board will need to take action. If you haven't had a chance to review them, we could do it at the next meeting, you still have time, but we will need to vote.
So let's address that at the next meeting, if that works.
Is it in person?
Is it in person? I think so,
I believe so. It's not on my calendar.
yeah. Yeah, it was for sure. I feel like I heard that it was in person. I think they're doing it in person, but they're doing away with kind of the lunch and all that stuff.
So we are moving that to the, is that October, or we have?
Yep.
6?
Okay.
Alright. Transportation, my second favorite topic.
What do we have, Patty?
Would it be okay if I just read the update? There's a lot to it, so it might be easier and then everyone at home can get the update as well.
That's that.
Alright, so we have a driver that has an appointment for fingerprinting tomorrow. And hopefully, we can get that turned around quickly. We've been calling and they've been very accommodating. We've been telling them with all of our staff members that we're in dire need of getting people on board, so they're helping, so hopefully that will happen quickly. We also were able to, as a side note, talking about fingerprinting, we're able to contact Department of Safety. They're actually gonna bring a mobile unit to the SAU office on Monday. We've been calling, the commissioner was very helpful at facilitating this, with Department of Safety. We have a large SAU and we had at one point, 47 employees that couldn't start because of the backlog of fingerprints. And right now, we're still at 30. So I'm thrilled that they're gonna come on Monday and anyone that needs fingerprints can come to the SAU, they'll do them and take them back for processing. So that's really good news and hopefully we can get this going. So Kelly also reported that she adjusted the bus routes for 5 buses once this employee is cleared, that there will still need to be 3 double runs, but one of those is shortened and she's taken the students off the first run when possible in order to have less students in the building early and late. Green and the new pink route will be single trips. They're still long, but all those students will not arrive until 7:40 and they'll leave at 2:50. The new pink bus puts the original pink bus route back together, includes traveling to Coffeetown Road and picks up Church and Meeting House Hill from the purple bus. The blue will start a little later and do a second run that brings in students close to the school. It will be able to get back to the school quicker in the PM. And then red and yellow are second runs that can't be absorbed into the other routes. And white will stay the same as it is now. So all of those routes are in print and when we are ready, they will go home to families. But Kelly did want you to know that she was prepared for the driver to start and what those were going to look like. She's hoping that this will be better for families with less students being dropped off between 7 and 7:10. She anticipates more families that are car riders may want to get back on the bus, so she'll have to monitor that closely. And then for drivers in training, the driver that was in training for Concord High School that had a personal emergency should be back in training next week and hopefully early October. If everything goes well, we will have that driver on board for Concord. In the meantime, as you probably know by now, Concord was able to provide us a bus in the afternoon. So they couldn't do that until their routes ended at 4:15, but as soon as their route is done, they're loading the kids and they're getting them back to Deerfield in 2 different spots, albeit late, at least they're able to get back to Deerfield in the afternoon. And as soon as that driver's ready, we'll get that bus, both AM and PM. I think that was the update.
Have you had any, I know it's only been 1 or 2 days, I think, of the high school, have you had, was anybody on it today or yesterday, did you get any sort of feedback?
I haven't heard, no, I haven't heard.
Andy?
Has there been any feedback or discussion from community members about their kids coming to school early and then staying late? Has that been an issue? Have we heard anything about, because I know when we originally came up with the bus plan, folks were concerned, so I'm just curious.
Yeah. I have not.
Everything is settled right in, I'm telling you, the kids they love it, they get here, in the morning, they settle right in, with games, they do homework, older kids are on their devices, in the afternoons, we've been able
Shocker.
to get the
Okay.
Kids outside playing, so. It's a well-oiled machine at this point.
And it certainly looks like, at least the bus runs that are adjusted on the table, we're moving them in the right direction. We're not where they need to be, where we want them, but
I think she was thoughtful when she changed them up.
they're trending at least in
Yeah.
a positive direction. Okay.
So-
We need to,
You probably could pending the new driver, and that way it's done. When she's ready to go, the routes are ready to go.
Okay, so before we go to the motion, let's,
Yeah, I just had a follow-up. So that's families, how are the teachers and administration handling in early, staying late?
It's a long day for them.
It is long, it is. But we have the staff that we have staying, you know, some staff are here morning and afternoon, some staff just morning, some staff just afternoon. You know, we're paying, luckily we have a grant to pay for it, it's probably gonna cost about $15,000 when all is said and done to the staff that is staying, so.
So we're, because that's not covered in the contract, right? So they're,
Right, I put it into the grant, so,
can we
yes.
does it make sense to do any sort of like survey to make sure that people, like, is there like a rotation? Or
No, I
people
think-
just,
I
or is
think
it just
this-
like you're here early and you stay late, like you don't
Yeah,
have a choice?
they knew it was probably gonna be about, I counted on about 10 weeks, I don't know if it'll be over or under, but,
Okay.
you know, we'll revisit that as we get there. The afternoon is more covered than the morning, we have probably about 5 or 6 staff in the morning that cover both the gym and the cafeteria.
Okay.
No, it seems to be working out okay. The staff that's working it, it's $250 a week. If they're here in the morning and the afternoon, extra. So if we're doing barely an hour in the morning and barely an hour in the afternoon.
So no news is good news.
No, we're just gonna go with that.
holidays are coming, a little extra cash maybe isn't a bad thing, right? All right, so I'd look for a motion to approve the new routes pending the start of the 5th driver.
Yeah.
AJ, you got it? Let's get in a second. Nate's got the second. Any discussion?
I would just like to say I appreciate Dale's efforts to make some improvements to our situation. This looks like it will be better, and I'm looking forward to when that starts.
And I would just add that I appreciate the staff who jumped in. I know they get paid for it, but I also know that it's an adjustment to their daily routines and something out of the ordinary that we haven't done before, so I appreciate that.
That's the one, for sure.
Thank you.
Anything else? Awesome, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so that takes care of transportation. Next up. Jeff, you asked us to add visitors.
Yes, with the advent of the sports season upon us and having spectators at the school, I think it's time for us to amend our initial stance on no visitors in the school. So I would make a motion that we allow visitors to attend sporting events in our school wearing masks, and that we allow visitors to the school during the school day. So that's for extracurricular activities, visitors to the school with masks during the school.
Can you clean it up? Start over,
This is not my,
please.
not my,
You might wanna separate them.
okay,
People
sure,
may have
Are
different.
you saying
you.
you'd like us to allow visitors with masks for extracurricular activities?
Yes.
yes.
So move that.
What's
So
that?
moved.
Okay, we have a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by, you want it, Andy? Sure.
I took no notes. What, second?
Jeff and Gigi.
All right, Jeff gets the
Yeah,
motion,
they got
Gigi gets the second. Any additional discussion?
Yeah, can you clarify what you mean by that? So you were saying during the day as well, volunteers?
That'll be a separate motion.
That'll be separate.
This is for extracurricular. Sports, et cetera, et cetera.
Keeping it clean.
Keeping it clean. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that takes care of the next one. Next, you want to give discretion to the administration
To
to
allow
allow
visitors.
visitors during the day while masked?
Yes,
Is that what the motion was?
that was the motion,
That's what the motion was. So move that.
so moved.
All right, second.
Second.
Andy, any additional discussion?
That's very open.
That's where he was going with it.
So I'm just concerned that Kristen is gonna get a barrage of people, that it's up to you, and how does she, I'm thinking if I were her, how would you say, oh, well, we're gonna let this group, but not this group?
So I guess the point of it is that we're going to have visitors at the school, for example, the architects and engineers working on the project, right? We need to be able to allow people into the school. I can see your point, I don't know the best way to filter that. So
So is it, are you thinking, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but are you thinking like for official school business? Or,
Well, I guess I would ask the question to you guys, are we at a point where we wanna allow volunteers, parents, whatever, into the classroom or maintain the status quo? Because I guess there's two separate things there, right? There's people that need to come into the business for school business.
Call them invited guests to a certain extent, right?
Correct.
Essential visitors? I like that word.
So I don't know the best way to word it, but we should clean it up
Would you
rather
like to
than.
amend it for essential visitors? Would that make you, does that work for you?
And people who I consider an essential visitor, like Paul Yurjo, who comes for UNH, you know, those are, to run our school, we need
These are
these people.
invited guests, yeah.
Right, but they're still visitors and they're still invited into the building. The architects and the engineers are essential to the running of our school, so, but volunteers is very different
Yep.
than our essential visitors.
I will amend my motion that we allow essential visitors to the school.
Second on the amendment?
Second.
All in favor of the amendment?
I don't think there was a motion to,
We had- no,
was
we had-
it seconded
We
though?
had a motion in a second.
Oh, we did, okay.
I seconded the first one.
Oh, okay, sorry, I missed that.
So,
So wait, this is, we're just adding, just changing it to essential
Essential.
visitors.
during the day.
During the day.
Okay. So this is just to approve the amendment to the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any additional discussion on the motion to allow essential visitors into the building while masked?
Does it need to specify during the school hours or not, or say? Is that better, Kevin?
I think that's good, thank you, yes.
Any additional discussion? Andy?
Uh,
Sorry, Gigi.
I was just gonna say, inviting folks from outside of our community into the school does increase the risk to the school itself. So I support, bringing visitors while they're masks into the school for extracurricular, and I support allowing essential visitors in because some of the essential business that we're taking on is expanding the school, talking about high school options, so that is important stuff, and we do need to work with those people during their business hours. But bringing in people from outside of Deerfield could impact our numbers within the school itself. So I just want to point that out.
Any additional? Gigi, you had a thought?
All I was wondering is clarification, maybe from Kristen a little bit, is like, is like how have things been going without any volunteers? Are classrooms feeling okay about that? Is it?
I think it depends on, I mean, I think teachers would love to have volunteers and come and help out. But we also know that there's a risk to that, and I know that I've been approached by, Girl Scouts and PTO would like to use the building to have their meetings, and we've got Jack's Driving School and Cub Scouts, and, do we open our building for them as well? Do we consider them essential visitors? Do we, it's a fine line right now.
Okay.
So parents can watch sports.
Yeah.
People can come in for that type of stuff, for the schools. Extracurricular too. And that's what we're still not open for the Girl Scouts, we're still not open for Boy Scouts, whatever the other outside organizations would be at this point. And that would be the status quo for the time being unless we amend that.
We encourage them to use the outdoor classrooms, those are always available. I'm happy to let them use those.
And I agree with that stance at the moment. So, that being said, do we have any additional discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Alright, next up we had Nate wanted to discuss high school communication.
Yes, thanks. I brought up an informational, 2 meetings ago, a piece that I think I wrote this actually a number of years ago when this came up most recently. Obviously, the high school concern is a big one that the community has been concerned about for a long time. So the last time the board was talking about it a few years ago, I think I started that. I added on to it to bring it up to date. I put it into the drive for last meeting, but it was the first time you had seen it. It's in there again. I'm hoping that over the last month, people have a chance to think about it. I don't know that we need to finalize it now, but are there any edits or questions that you have after looking at it? There's the one-page written piece about the history, last 20 years or so, where we are, how we got here. There's also, just in terms of trying to get the word out to our community, I think we've all kind of figured out that communicating is a difficult thing, especially when the tools aren't exactly there for us to do it very efficiently. So using Facebook, I think, can get the word out, and I'm thinking that if we put that sort of, rather than posting a whole thing, which probably people won't really read, if I posted that little figure that I made and linked to it, and I posted the written piece on the SAE website and then put the link to it on then people could see it on Facebook and people would recognize it. But additional information would be on the SAE website or our board website, and so that would be where people could go for more accurate, updated info. So I'm looking for your thoughts on that, any edits on those two pieces. It doesn't have to happen right now, but if you have any edits, and then we could maybe finalize it next meeting perhaps. Unless we're happy to go, I'm happy to.
So I think what my thought is if anybody has any edits, it's going to be made for the next week and a half, and at the next meeting, we either push it through as approved, or we discuss any edits if there are.
Are there any questions now before we?
Yeah, clarification, what are the file names that I should be looking at?
One is, it's like a brief history, I think. Are you gonna go look in the drive? One is
I know there are.
a recent history of.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I made a copy of that.
And the other one is FB post, CHS.
Okay, I saw that one.
And they would be linked, like I said, the FB post would go on Facebook, and then link to the other piece, which would be posted on the SAE website.
Where's the paper copy?
But I'm open to other ideas if you want.
I'm wondering, I know I was trying to help edit the second bullet, so I wonder if we just say, in rare cases, students may be assigned to a different school.
Okay.
And then contacting me, I would then share the two ways that could happen.
Gotcha. Okay.
One of the edits, and then there's a couple of lines in the longer piece.
You wanna send it to me?
My only, it looked good when I read it this afternoon. I thought the only thing we could maybe do is highlight more, we'd say some changes may be coming.
Yeah.
There seems to still be a lot of confusion in the community about what direction we're going, you've got it in that kind of last paragraph.
Yeah.
Talking about the committee submitted to the board a list of 6 nearby schools and asked the board to prioritize and then negotiate. That's clearly the direction we're still aiming, and maybe we want to highlight that more than just burying it deep in all that.
Okay.
For the people that aren't going to take the time.
Gotcha. So put something about that on the Facebook piece, put a bullet to that effect.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Just following the board is currently discussing
Options for the
options
future.
for the future with area schools. Okay. Anything else regarding that? All right. That brings us to our PTO update. Do you have an update for us?
We just have a couple things going on. Our ongoing shoe that I've talked about a lot of times, we're still collecting shoes till the end of this month. We're planning the townwide yard sale on October 9th. And we have a flower sale happening on Saturday. Mums, beautiful fall mums. In case you're interested, stop by and we'll be happy to sell you a lot.
Awesome. And I thought I saw steel. We're looking to try to get steel to Harding Metals.
That is 8th grade fundraiser.
That's 8th grade. I'm sorry. I apologize.
But that's still me and Kelly.
So hey, why
see
you
me.
plug the 8th grade fundraiser while you're here? We need
Yes.
steel.
We need any metal. They'll take aluminum cans, they'll take washers, dryers, any metal you got, scrap.
The difference this year is we don't have a dumpster this year, correct?
Correct.
So it has to go to Northwood.
Can drop it at Harding Metal between 6:30 and 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless you have a job, and then you call us, we'll find a way to come pick it up for you, and we'll find somebody who doesn't have a job to go drop it off.
That
You
will
can
be
just
their
email
job.
me. Email me if you need it picked up.
And
Okay.
Mr. Greaves not here, so all other duties as assigned
Sign
is
him
on the table.
Oh, nice.
Alright, and that is, and then if you do bring it to, I'm just trying to capture the thing I wrote on Facebook. So if you do bring it to Harding Metals, let them know you're from Deerfield for the 8th graders. And then they'll weigh your metal or your truck on the way in and the way out, and all that good stuff, and that's on Route 4.
Yes,
Did I get it
exactly.
all? Okay.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on that one, but I wanted to make sure you plugged it.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for the PTO or the 8th grade fundraising? We added to their report. None, all right. Nate, the exec board meeting?
No.
All right,
Tomorrow night.
tomorrow night. So we'll have a update then. Principal Withy,
Yes,
what do you have for us?
3 pages.
3 pages, let's have it.
I'll talk fast, really fast. I think Candy did a transfer in, transfer out for me to update the school board. So this school year, we have had 35 students transfer in and we've had 27 students transfer out. At the next board meeting, I'll have an updated enrollment sheet for you, the enrollment sheet that we use, just so you, because our October 1st reports are due, and so we'll have the most up-to-date. But right now, we're sitting at about 521, including our preschoolers. And we have just in terms of breaking down that data, we had the transfer outs were students that moved out of state. We had about 6 students move out of state. We had 4 go to non-public or out-of-state non-public schools, like a private Catholic school. We had 16 that transferred to another district in state. So those are the reasons why people left our school to go to another school. Yes.
Is that year on year? Is that over the summer? What is the time frame?
Yeah, between the end of last year and the beginning of this year. So over the summer and into September. That's
So
what we've had so
effectively,
far.
we planned for them to come this year, but
Correct, so
Yeah.
27 of those students that we thought would be here moved out, but 35 that we weren't expecting moved in.
So we're plus 8,
take
Yes,
it,
we are, yes, we are.
plus 8.
go expansion.
I'd like to give a huge shout out to Chris Kufos. He was here, I don't know if any of you know, we had that last crazy storm, we had a delivery truck that was bringing our lovely new furniture for the library, got stuck in Pennsylvania in the storm that was down there, couldn't get out of Pennsylvania, so that week of the end of August, beginning of September, we expected our furniture to come in that Wednesday, then that Thursday, and it didn't come in until Friday the 3rd when we were all there was no school that day, but Chris and his crew worked and they expected the truck to get about 4 and they're coming at 10:30 that night. So Chris stayed until I offered to come, he told me absolutely not. So he got the furniture off the truck and 10:30 that night. So God bless the truck driver who brought it here, and I don't know what we do without Chris, I really don't. He spent the entire next week building these all came, there was just flat boxes, just everything. He built these by hand over the next week. And Beth Mostu and Patty Moore spent hours unboxing and filling these shelves and getting it set up. And it's still a work in progress, but it's definitely in progress. Brian moved, as you can see, those 2 shelves were up here. He moved everything's on wheels and fairly easy to push around, like get it out of the way. So everything is movable, and Beth is loving it. Today was the grand opening. Part of the tape of the arrows on the floor that will come up once kids know what to do. So we're very excited for our new space and very grateful to the board and the community for letting us purchase the materials. As you can see, there's a circulation desk. Bob moved the computers here to a straight line as opposed to kind of opening everything up. So yeah, it's been a process, a work in progress, but it's been great. And thank you to our PTO. You forgot to mention your coffee camper, the delicious coffee camper.
I love coffee camper.
Yes. So they came last Wednesday and brought us egg sandwiches with bacon, without bacon, with cheese and bacon, juices and fruits and apple yogurt parfaits, and the staff, it was quite a treat for the staff. It was greatly appreciated. So thank you to our
We had
PTO.
iced coffee this time.
And iced coffee and sweet tea.
So how do we get that to stop on South Road on Saturdays and Sundays?
Andy?
Only if there are cinnamon rolls and, you know, that
Right
sort of stuff.
around number 1 something.
There's a couple of stops.
Yeah,
Just
that's
give me a
fine.
school bus and,
I'll be patient.
if you can drive a school bus, Andy, you open up a can of worms. So our Professional Development Wednesday started, as you know, it's the culture at this school that every Wednesday is Professional Development Wednesday. We call it PD Wednesday. It's been around since before my time, that's for sure. And teachers stay every Wednesday from 3 to 4 o'clock. And last year, or 2 years ago, I organized it a little bit more than when I had my first year. So the first Wednesday, as you know, is dedicated to a staff meeting. Our second Wednesday was, today was our second Wednesday. We have afternoon medleys and the staff volunteer to be a host of a different topic. This week we talked about MLP, SLOs. So a couple of middle school teams were working on social studies. We had some people working on math. We had our reading specialist and working with third grade on a comprehension program that she had bought for them. So everybody is was doing something different today. We have an inclusion equity group started by Michael Trong and Heather Swanson and Sarah Potter. They started reading a book last year and they carried over that work this, and we have a huge group of teachers that are getting together to talk about those things. So that was really exciting to see those afternoon medleys come together today. The third Wednesday is always a time for teachers to work independently, individually on their goals for the year, their SLOs, gathering doing their own, some people watch webinars. And then the fourth Wednesday is always dedicated to team time. So we've started that back up in September, and we'll continue that for the rest of the year. Our first, well, technically our second, but we had our A-Day admin day. Yes?
Hi, Grant. Looking ahead to the year that's sort of in front of us, a lot of time, so I'm not asking for the next meeting or anything, but I'm excited to hear about the inclusion group that I have.
Yep, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yeah. Would there be a chance for the board to hear more about?
Oh, I'd be glad to, for sure.
I don't know whether it would be a teacher would come and tell us, or you
Yep.
could tell us, but I'd love to hear more about that.
In fact, Michael Chong is going to be doing a presentation at the October Professional Development on culturally responsive teaching, so there'll be a lot of that work being done. And I'd be glad to have the committee, a couple of people come, or he would come and show you his presentation. And
Yeah, please, thank you.
absolutely. So admin day, we met yesterday. We met. We divided the group up. The first group that we met with, we always meet with an IA team, and then yesterday was K, 3rd, 1st, and 7th, and then the next A day will be the opposite of them. So it'll be another IA. I think I have library set up for that day, and 2nd, 4th, 5th, and 6th and 8th. So we do a team and a teacher check-in, a student check-in, and a data check-in, and I also brought in the idea of successes and celebrations, so I could tell the board the great things that are happening. Kindergarten is working on their fair projects, everybody is, but they specifically, they were doing a paper mache project, and some kindergartners like to get dirty and some don't, so that's been fun. They are working on their caterpillars in science right now. They started their writing and their math, they're working on gathering data about that. And they specifically wanted to make mention that they love being together on the playground and playing together. Our first grade learners are trying to become a little more independent. They're working on understanding their literacy jobs. They are in the process of reading Charlotte's Web, is the big book that they're reading right now. They just finished Elmer the Elephant and talked about how they're special and unique, and of course they have the butterflies going as well. 3rd grade recently did a slow motion video on a parachute dropping. I don't know if anybody here is a 3rd grader or not, but it was really cool. So they started their Native American unit. They're going to go out on Thursday around the fire pit, and we're going to have an elder visiting, aka Mr. Ferdinand with a wig, and he's going to tell the legend of how Chipmunk got its stripes around the fire pit, try to make it as authentic as possible. Our 7th grade is doing a great job. They started their boot camp. Middle school all middle school is doing something like this. To set expectations, they're setting goals with their 7th graders, doing a Caught You Doing Good, having lunch with the kids, small groups of kids coming up and having lunch, really working on developing those relationships with our kids. And I don't know if you have a 7th or 8th grader in with Mr. West or Mrs. Radcliffe, but they're working on this awesome Survivor-esque outdoor survival unit, complete with making fire with flint and steel, and extra credit if you can get an ember going. So there's a lot of components. Mark and Ashlyn have developed challenges. They work on teamwork points. There's a winner of that teamwork. They nominate a survivor of the day. So the kids have really bought into this, and Mark and Ashlyn and our intern Noah are really working well with this big project. So those are the updates of some of our grade levels. Next time I'll have the other grade levels for you. Our student picture day went well on Thursday. Last Thursday we had them. Retakes will be taking place on the next month or so. I'm looking to Candy or Kelly. We did not do class pictures because we didn't have our advisory magnets. As you recall, we were building the month of September around our advisories and our magnets, and giving teachers a chance to get to know the kids and the kids to know the teachers. And in fact, today in a few minutes I'll tell you about the magnet meeting that happened today. So advisory magnet pictures and class pictures will happen during retake day. Our architects and our engineers were here, not to steal your thunder, Jeff, but on Friday the 10th. Jeff will probably get into more detail about that. Our soccer, volleyball, and cross country is up and running. Soccer has had a couple of games. We also had some cancellations. But volleyball played at Portsmouth yesterday. I spoke to a few of the girls who tell me that they actually held their own against Portsmouth. So that's great because they have not been together for very long. And it's a really cool group of girls that are playing this year. So we'll reschedule our cross-country meet that was postponed due to the inclement weather. It didn't come until 7:15 or so. No, 6 o'clock decided to start raining a little bit before. It was pouring when you got here, right at quarter of. So we did have to postpone. We were worried about the hurricane winds that were coming through. And when Denny Gregg sends me a weather update, it's serious business. So I take that very seriously. So we'll reschedule that for sure. 8th grade magnet had an overview today, so just to fill the board in. I'm sorry, this is the last thing, I promise. They're working on, the 8th graders met in the cafeteria to talk with all of the magnet advisors. There's going to be 5 magnets. We'll have the maker magnet again, Mrs. Clark and Mrs. Berry. Mr. Dudley is doing more of a kindness and music magnet, which is a little different than what he's done in the past. It's hard to get out into the community, so he kind of switched his up a little bit. So Mr. Dudley and Mrs. LaFond will be with that one. The outreach magnet is always with Mr. B and Mrs. Swanson. The snapshot magnet with Mrs. Dwyer and Mrs. McGovern will be back in place. And Ms. Laskowski, who's our long-term sub for 8th grade science, and Mr. Grieve are doing a magnet together called Live It Green. So they wanted to attract just enough boys, but not too many, and enough girls to balance it all out. So it's kind of an outdoorsy recycling, still the same theme, but they are switching it up a little bit. So Living It Green is their magnet. As I said, the kids will be working on their cover letters this week in ELA. They'll have their interviews with the magnet advisors, and then magnet advisors will get together and pick the magnet groups, and they'll find out probably sometime next week. So it was a big deal today in 8th grade. And just some upcoming events. Thank you to Bonnie Heisey, who again arranged the staff flu clinic, which is this Friday the 17th. Our band and chorus will be doing the opening ceremony for the Deerfield Fair as per tradition. Chris Motika will start his monthly meetings with our middle school, starting the week of the fair, actually on that Tuesday the 28th, and that Wednesday the 30th. They'll be out to work with 6th grade, 7th grade, and then 8th grade on Wednesday. He has a whole list of topics for every single month that I'd be happy to share with the board next time. And then just a reminder that there's no school on the 1st of October for the fair day, and no school the following Friday for a teacher workshop day, which is also Columbus Day, Indigenous Day week. So, thank you for listening and being an attentive audience. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Principal Worthy? Okay. CRB?
No meeting yet.
Has not met.
No,
All right.
yeah, a little bit of a debacle. We were supposed to, our first meeting was supposed to be this week,
Okay.
but we will be rescheduling it for October.
Can you take that? I'm still on that list.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
for sure. We'll send out an email. And with Erica Martin moving on, it was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's what I was
Sorry.
wondering, because I know that Erica moved on, so.
Brooke Laskowski's going to take over.
Okay.
Erica's, so.
It's everywhere. Love it. All right, Jeff, building, what do you got?
Okay, so we met today with Valley Brensinger. They're, as Kristen said, toured the building last week. They need to come back out, the architects do, to finish the other half. They got through half of it. They've got the 3D model completed for the school, based off the plans that they got from us. No major issues were identified that they're wildly concerned about, except for ongoing roof leaks. Right now, so you guys all know where we're at, we're still kind of in that information gathering stage, both from finishing up the building, what we have, and then also the information gathering stage as far as talking to staff. They did a presentation on September 1st to the staff. They'll be sending out a survey to them next week, and then conducting interviews with them on October 8th. Then they'll be meeting with administration October 15th for kind of a visioning session, taking all the information that they've gotten from the staff, from administration, and coming up with a visioning session. November is when they'll be putting pen to paper. The question that I had for them was, are we on track? Are we slipping at all? And they're very confident, very sure that we are on track, that they're going to be able to have us a plan and a budget number in time for us to do a warrant article together.
We have that
Kathy was actually putting all that together today on budget deadlines. I didn't look at it yet, she just put it in this afternoon. It's usually the end of January. I can
So whenever we
get that
have
number.
that, we wanna get it over to Jeff, just so that you can share it with them, so they know what our drop dead.
They do a lot of this work, so I bet they are on
I'm sure
top of
they,
those.
I have no doubt they have it, but I just wanna
Get this year's date, absolutely.
Yeah, and what I said to them, and what I'll say to you guys is scary just because we're not building, right now it's all conceptual what we're building, it's not like we've got a foundation going in the ground, so it's scary knowing whether or not we're on track or not. All we have to go on right now is their word, and that's the information, I have no reason to doubt it, but, it's, until we have a plan and a budget, we won't know, but so far it's been a great experience, they followed up on everything they've said they're gonna do at previous meetings. The kind of not immediate things that we need to begin working on, but is getting the groundwork laid for the community outreach, which I've talked about before. We have a volunteer from PTO who's not necessarily associated with PTO, but she's gonna be helping us lead that public outreach and communication effort. We talked about Valley Brensinger really wants to get community feedback and solicitation so they can kind of get a complete picture. And one of those things they're hoping for is if we could somehow reach out to families, since we'll have a captive audience at the Deerfield Fair, if there was a way to incorporate that. My thought was potentially Barbara Cook runs the information, who's on the committee, runs the information booth at the fair, getting her material to distribute, and also solicit feedback there, as well as the school board, the school building, I'm just not sure. Who runs the school building? Is that something we're involved with, or it's just teachers always seem to be in there?
Bonnie Heisey would be a good person. She's taken, Cindy Hansen was the supervisor, or superintendent.
Yeah, I think they're called superintendents of buildings, yeah.
Bonnie has taken over, and there is somebody else, but she's the school liaison.
Alright, and I'll reach out to Bonnie and see if she's comfortable with that, and then if so, I'll put her in touch with Jay from the Valley Brensinger. Yes.
Would it make sense to have handouts, printouts made, and do we have budget for that?
So, yes, we have the budget for it, and we talked about trying to do a handout. The problem is the information that we're trying to get out right now, we're not at the point where we're able to generate that material. So what we want to be able to communicate to the town is very clearly and concisely here are the deficiencies, our classrooms don't meet the OE standards, our OT is set up on our stage in an old closet. You know, that type of information, very concrete. So they thought that right now it might not get the right message across, it might cause more panic than good, was kind of the feeling I got from Jay when we talked about that. They're really interested right now in trying to get the feedback from the community with their goals. So
As in like, does the community think we need to build a new building or not? What kind of feedback?
more so, you know, there's the two trains of thought. There's we could go and build 6 square boxes that are our classroom, and that would check that box. But they want to look at it in a holistic approach and say, they want to hear from the community. It's a community school. How and what do you want in this space that you're going to be potentially spending tax dollars on?
These are common uses of the benefit at large, as opposed to just benefit the school as itself.
Yeah.
And that can help gain support, obviously, throughout the community if you put a resource at large for space for Parks and Rec would be like one thing, and that's really probably somebody we should include. Looking for community members to talk to, get for the Parks and Rec Commission.
And yeah, Gigi's taking the charge on that one and is begun compiling kind of every organization in town that we could talk to and should talk to. It's how to get that information and how to communicate with them. Do you feel like you're in a good spot with it? Do you need more help?
I mean, right now, I haven't reached out to anybody just because we're not quite at that point, but I think that's the game plan. Like, for instance, interestingly enough, via our notes and just board conversations, the energy committee in Deerfield has reached out to me and said, hey, we understand you're interested in a building, and we've been working with the town. Are you interested in hearing some of the ideas that we have about energy efficiency? So that's a great connection, and we're really like La Valley Bransinger was interested in like all of the other organizations in town that we have that may be interested in like, oh wow, I never even thought that the school could be a space that might support this particular organization. So.
It sounds like that we should target probably, you know, with the visioning session, with the administration October 15th, we should probably try and target something right around then so we should, probably in the next 2 weeks, we should have reached out to them to set something up. I'm gonna send an email to Jay, but probably right around that October 15th. Because then they're gonna start wanting pen to paper come November. Time is moving so quick. I mean, we're definitely moving this right along, but it's gonna be January before we know it. I will email even Jay to try and figure out what we should be looking at. That's all I have for an update.
Any other questions for Jeff or DG or anybody else? All right, Nate, do you have anything for the high school?
Actually, I had a question.
Oh, fire away.
For Jeff, thanks. You said early on, Jeff, one of the upcoming steps is to meet with administration. That just reminded me that, given that we both went to the workshop in Harvard, I assume that this means the administration, not just the school. Yeah,
Correct, yes. Thank you.
Great.
Anything on the high school option side of the equation, Nate?
No, other than we're sort of in the middle of a sort of negotiation phase. More news will be presented when available.
I was gonna say, I think it's understandable for the community to understand that while we're having these discussions, there's not a lot we can talk about. I do wanna add, Patty, just dawned on me, the municipal budget committee held their first meeting. It was not emailed, so I did miss it, unfortunately, but it was just their organizational meeting. It will start their regular meetings in November. And probably that time of year to put the NBC update back on the agenda. There won't be much to discuss until we get into November, but that process is starting. Bill Von Hassel was named chairman, and Joanne Bradbury was named as vice chairman. And meetings start in November, and will be Tuesdays with the school sessions starting the beginning of December.
When do we usually get the first look at our budget?
Probably another mid-October.
Yeah. Probably mid-October.
That reminds me, that was something Patty brought up, that we're gonna be coming in at, the 11th hour with this warrant article, so don't know how that will affect the NBC, but it's something that they.
So the process for NBC is they handle the budgets first. They start with the town side, because their budget cycle is 6 months ahead of ours. Yep. So they're deeper in the process at this point. So they'll start with the town side, and then because warrant articles aren't due until late in the process, across the board, it's basically we address the town's budget. If there's warrant articles for the town, we discuss them. Then we slide into the school's budget, we discuss the school's budget, and then again, fall before that.
I think my comment to them was, we'll be giving the budget committee the first look at our budget, and the earlier we can have at least an estimate so that we can talk to the MBC, so that we don't at the end of January come and say, and here's your warrant articles, and there's a.
And most certainly, that first November meeting was the update from us will be, we're working on the budget, and we're working on potentially a bond, we're working on a high school contract, those are pretty kind of large items, obviously. It seems like, we don't have any contracts this year, so typically, that would be another discussion item, but we're in a non-contract year, so we're covered there. But they'll certainly know to be expecting the dialogue as we progress through the process. And Andy, I'll get you the schedule in case you wanna watch.
Yeah.
Or join in. All right, that brings us to policies. We need to,
Before we move on,
Oh,
one
go ahead.
question just about this here. Andy is officially like the alternate, he doesn't have a vote. We only have, as the board, we have a representative on the NBC and one vote, or we don't have a vote on it?
so the board of selectmen and the school board both placed a member on the NBC, so there's 9 elected members, 3 for 3 terms, and then the 2 board appointed members
With a vote.
with a vote.
Just one, okay, so Andy would be the alternate, but he wouldn't have a vote. Would he have a vote if you weren't at the meeting?
If I wasn't at the meeting and Andy was there sitting at the table, his vote is the school board's vote.
Okay, thank you.
All right, policies, I think we need to try to address some. Patty, do you wanna read this?
Sure. BA is the first policy in your list, and Nate had some suggested edits that went into your drive. I don't know if you put them in or if you had a chance to look at those yet, and maybe Nate wants to speak to them.
It was yesterday that I put him in, and I apologize for the late hour there, but I was looking at the NHSBA version or draft, and I thought that there were a couple adjustments that could be made. One, I thought it was out of order a little bit. I thought that starting with our goals and objectives and then going to self-evaluation seemed to make more sense than the other way around. So a lot of it was just sort of reordering some of the language they already had. And I added things like how we would identify a board level, which again, the list of 1 through 9 there is the same as what the NHSBA proposed, and I think that's consistent with us meaning that we talked about a 30,000 foot view and looking at where board issues rather than getting too far into micromanaging.
Before we go on, can we talk about specific file names? Is that possible?
Sure, this is called Oxford BA or something like that.
Yeah, it's BA, but it probably has Oxnard in the title somewhere.
I just see BA-R1
It says
Board of
Oxford
Val.
BA.
It might be outside of the policy folder.
Okay.
Is it outside?
Oh yeah, it's on the main folder, it's not the folder.
That's
Okay.
It's in your binder behind the green
Andy doesn't open the.
Hey, guess what?
tab.
I loaded it. By the time you finished telling me where it was, it's already open. How about that?
That's power.
Technology.
Technology.
But I need to be plugged in. Sorry, Nate. Go
No
ahead.
worries. So then the only substantive change I think that's in there is really at the bottom, the last, I put in a sentence which gets a little bit at how our self-evaluation could work. And I added, early in the first paragraph, I did add a couple of things about how we could identify some of our concerns, such as through engineering studies, financial audits, strategic planning processes. These are things that happen to enable us to identify what are some more level goals that we can explore. And then at the end, I did add something about how do we evaluate what we're actually doing? Where do we get data from to actually critique ourselves? And I put in the idea of surveys from the communities and other things like that. But I think this is a topic that we've been discussing over the past couple months at the board level, and I think finding ways where we can solicit feedback for ourselves, how are we doing, is something that I think has been maybe missing, and it's hard for us to get a good look outside of our board, and I think input from the community, other than the the annual vote on March, I think would be meaningful for us as we go through this process. So so there's just sort of ideas in there for how we do it. So that's kind of in a nutshell.
So what is the wish of the board in regards to policy BA?
So you're saying that the one that you have in the folder has just additional language beyond?
I reorganized it, I did tweak some of the language a little bit, yeah, a little bit of additional, but not much.
If we wanted to move something, we would be moving to a BA or the box number. As far as one of those. We want to act on this, or we want to push it to the next meeting?
So I guess the question I have is I read through them this afternoon, and when you talk about the review from the community, are you talking about actual evaluation or us reviewing how we're perceived by the community? I missed
I think that there's two ways to go, but I think that it's important. One of the topics that we as a board have been discussing is how do we both at the school level, within the school, and also I think as a board, as an administration, how if this were an actual company at some level, some review has to happen, right? How do you assess how well you're doing? Are you meeting your stakeholders, needs and et cetera? So the idea is it's open to interpretation. But I think the idea of having a survey or soliciting feedback from our constituents every so often is not a bad idea. And so a way to do that, I'm open to different ideas, but yeah, so a survey or different ways of doing it. What kind of data can we collect to actually help us evaluate the job we're doing? I think is an important step that we should consider.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think that a lot of the minutiae will be lost on the public, but I think a lot of communication, transparency, those type of that sentiment is important to get out for people. Go ahead.
I was just gonna mention that Gigi did get from Barrett, there's a couple of appendices to this sample form, BA-R1 and BA-R2. So Kathy put those in a separate folder, I think it's board evaluation.
I was looking for that.
Yeah, I think it's in a separate folder.
I cannot
It's not the policy folder,
in
it's not the
tonight.
main folder.
It's in tonight's meeting as a folder.
As a folder,
And,
so,
okay.
so
Oh, there it is.
if and when the board is ready to adopt this policy, there are some suggested ways that you can do
Right.
evaluations.
I think my thought process
In the
is
folder.
once a policy is in place, then you address the evaluation tool as a separate item. All right, we want to take action on this.
I move to adopt BA Oxnard.
All right, we have a motion for Nate's edits to policy BA. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Oh, sorry.
Does it make sense from the administration perspective? Are there any changes or anything as you see it from your perspective that makes sense?
Nope. I think it looks great. Thank you.
All right. Any other? Andy?
So the original or the NHSBA proposed BA policy just has an appendix and they reference some of the files that Gigi, I guess, secured for us as like tools or mechanisms to do that.
Yeah.
Do we want to include that language in Nate's
I think once we put a policy in place, we can address the, or not put a meeting, we can address the actual mechanism we use
Okay.
behind it. I think
That
that's
was
a
it?
cleaner way to do it. All right,
Let me see. And sorry, I have to step out, but, I just wanted to say, and maybe I may be repeating what Nate said, but I think it's great to, I was kind of excited when I saw the policy, because I think it's great for us to like self-reflect on the job that we're doing. And some of the tools that Barrett sent along, I think give us some really concrete things to look at, in terms of how we're doing as a board. And also, I think that, if we look at some of the items in there in terms of, some of the tools that Barrett sent, and maybe think about looking at getting feedback from the community at large about how we're doing. I think it makes sense, you know, as we go into budget season, as we go into the year, I think it just, makes sense for us. Because like having that kind of culture of feedback, is just so important. That's where the learning occurs. The learning occurs when we actually fully, you know, it's one thing when we get like 3 citizens who publicly comment, but if we can develop a system where we actually get a larger way, a more collective way to get feedback from the community at large, I think it can be really helpful to us as a board to, you know, kind of set concrete goals for our work.
any additional discussion? All in favor of the Oxnard edit to policy
Yeah.
BA?
Um,
Policy BA is done. Looks like DAF, Patty?
So I was reading through DAF
Yes,
and it is a whopper.
it is.
It's way in the back.
It's just, so this was as a result of, every district in the state faced this when they received their grant audits and their financial audits. They came back when they did, the DOE did our audit as a federal requirement and said, oh, you have to have a policy about this, and this. So the School Board Association responded to that and said, okay, here's your policy. So it is simply to meet those requirements, and it's incredibly dense.
So, this only applies to federal funds, so I was looking at the contracting requirements and all of that. Well, Amber is gonna be in for it anytime we put a project up, but then I realized it's probably not applicable to most of the stuff we put out in bid.
Right, yeah, it's to regulate when you're using grant funds that you meet all the federal requirements. If you're gonna hire a company, or do construction projects, there's a whole host of hoops you have to jump through when you're using federal funds for that,
Okay,
so yes.
that was my concern.
Are we already generally consistent with this?
Yes.
We already meet all this?
Yes,
I run into this in my line of work, and it is some of the stuff that gets thrown at the federal agencies when it's federally funded is just obscene what they're looking for, certifying or even, so.
you do a great job, but they said, well, where does it say that you're gonna do that? You have to have a policy about it.
So we are gonna look for a motion to approve policy DAF, the administration of federal funds.
So moved.
So
Second.
moved by Nate, seconded by Gigi. Any additional discussion on DAF? All in favor? Alright. Next up, we have GBD, the Board and Staff Communications Policy.
So I believe, Andy, did you request for this to be put on? I think you were helping do the policy reviews and you found some that were really old, as in this is 1997.
Yeah.
So we
Well,
were.
it was reviewed in 2004, I believe.
This one? I don't think this one. It is an optional policy according to the New Hampshire School Board Association. Yeah, they reviewed it, the School Board Association reviewed it in 2004. Your newest, review was 1997, so.
I don't know who was here.
I don't know if anyone's had a chance to compare the two, or consider any edits, but, that's why this policy was brought forward.
Yeah, I was just looking at the NHSBA one, I did not even go back to the prior one.
You want, we can carry it, it's an optional, it's not an urgent.
Can I ask a question maybe to
Sure.
solicit input from you for next meeting, we can do that. In the NHSBA version, in the second paragraph, it says staff communication with the board.
Yep.
It ends with, well, things, one sentence, all communications to the board, any board, shall be submitted to the superintendent.
Yes.
That seems like if we're having this CRB reps, for instance, like, is that considered going to the superintendent, or?
No.
We don't currently do this.
Correct. This is more, it's to respect the chain of command, so that if there's an issue, it's not going directly to the school board. First it goes to the building level, then it comes to me, and if they're not satisfied with what I have to say, then it would go through me to you.
Right. So
But it
there's-
doesn't include committees and official bodies that are working together.
Okay.
There's an open exchange of information.
Okay. I guess maybe if we are gonna wait a meeting for this, I do, would just be curious, do you feel like does this meet currently what we do, and do you feel like the NHSBA is appropriate to Deerfield, or would you, from your perspective, recommend any changes? Or would you recommend sticking with the whole one going Deerfield?
Oh, okay,
I would appreciate your thoughts on this from
I
your
can do
perspective.
that, yeah, thank you.
Alright, so we're gonna push that over to the next meeting? Everybody agree with that? Okay. That brings us to GCQC, the staff resignation policy, which is also getting a little long in the tooth.
Yes, that was another, Andy helping with review and identifying another 1997 policy.
I tell you how old I was then.
So again, this is an optional policy, you can choose to have it, not have it, deviate from the school board's version. This is one that's pretty open for what your desires.
What is the wish of the board in regards to GCQC?
I think that makes sense, and I'm happy to move, I guess again, like coach would be, has anything changed, or is that still accurate for our practice, and that seems to make sense from a calendar perspective, funding perspective?
For the exit interviews and the staff
Oh, I didn't-
resignations.
I didn't see exited.
The staff resignations, the school board association, or no, that was the Alton School District, sorry, that we put in as a sample. So I think Andy, you got those, right? Andy, did you get those or did I get those?
I think you did, 'cause I
I
don't-
don't even remember.
As I'm looking at the existing policy,
Yeah,
it seems to follow our standard kind of operating procedure pretty thoroughly.
Yeah.
So,
oh, I see what you're asking, sorry, I misunderstood.
so I think Nate's question is do you agree that that follows our current operating procedure?
Yes,
In which case, we should reaffirm it and move on.
yes,
Yes.
thank
So I
you.
will look for a motion to approve GCQC, the existing policy.
Second.
Additional discussion? All in favor?
Alright.
Aye.
GCQC has been reaffirmed.
Into the present.
Into the present, we are on to IJO, the Family and Community Partnerships Policy.
Yes, and I believe this one got pushed down the road a little bit. There was also an Oxnard version to this policy. Good job,
Oxnard.
Nate gets those edits in, it's great.
Oxnard
Maybe it's the 11th hour.
may have added a little bit of language, the Oxnard edit.
I think there was an additional paragraph at the end, and then we went off and had some conversation, so I'm not sure where we stand with that.
And then as of a few meetings ago, the administration brought back sort of your proposal, your edits that you thought made sense from the school.
Yes,
And is that JA? I got to figure out which one we're talking about.
Yes, it's the IJOK.
Okay.
yes,
The
slash K.
IJOKA is the one that was edited, amended, passed through administration and is now ready for adoption. Okay, so do we want to discuss this as the IJOKA Oxnard administration edited policy?
I'm happy to discuss it. I'm also happy to just being the author of the other version, I'm happy to remove the yellow to go to the school's proposal. I'm happy to discuss it if you want to, but if when we're ready, I'm happy to
So
go
we
to
wanna-
the school's counter proposal.
Okay, so why don't we at the next meeting bring a very cleaned up version, which will be the school's draft, and discuss that.
Okay.
And try to compress this into,
One to look at, finalize, yep.
Yep.
We can do that.
all right.
So just clarification, so I'm happy to move this to the next section so we can talk about it. I just wanna understand the document format of the presentation. So the one that Nate authored, Nate struck some of the language that you wanted to remove. And I think the yellow is inserting new language.
Yeah,
Is that my understanding?
yeah, but definitely the paragraph at the end was all added by me. And that's in yellow. If anyone should find it.
And I think the difference between the two policies, if I'm not mistaken, is that you were looking for kind of a feedback loop evaluation tool.
Which we've just put in place.
Just at the board level, this is more at the school level,
This is for parents and students to
not at the board.
provide
And we-
feedback to staff.
Right.
Administration said that they don't think this is the appropriate policy for that.
Yes, that's what they do.
So we want it compressed, clean up, and review again.
I can take the track changes out, remove the yellow, and present you with what
Yes.
Lydia's proposing.
I was actually gonna say I prefer tracked changes so that I can look at one document.
That is this one.
That's why I have both of them on my
Okay,
screen
okay.
and I'm just,
Yeah,
so,
we do the track changes so you can see what the changes were, and then if it's easier to have a clean version to vote on, that's easy fix.
You have thoughts on
I
what you would like, what would you like?
it's beyond just this, I would like a standard operating procedure for if somebody wants to amend or change language, we do it in track changes, so it's more of a procedural thing than having to do with this, so we can move on and we can talk about it at another time.
But before changes are made or before the next meeting, would you propose any changes to the language that is in this policy before the final version comes back to us next meeting?
No, but I'm saying as someone who consumes proposed changes, I much prefer having one document that is the original, language that's struck, language that's inserted, so then I'm not side by side, two documents trying, so I prefer the method that you chose is basically what I'm trying to say.
Jeff?
So I guess the question I have is if this isn't the correct policy,
If we did wanna have you evaluate the tool, cause I think that feedback loop is important. I'm with Nate on this, and I know you guys feel differently, but do you think there's a policy in place for it that we could incorporate that into, or is there a different?
Yeah, I don't think we necessarily feel differently. I think that this policy talks more about the partnerships, and that the part that we left was in order to foster strong partnerships, the Deerfield Community School will provide opportunities for parents to provide feedback whenever appropriate. And then, we took it a step further to say that that's probably a procedure at the school level, and then have conversations about what that might look like, carrying it a step further to what it might look like for teachers to gather feedback. And I think it's more that culture of feedback that Gigi was talking about, from my goals, your goals, the administration's goals with me, the teacher's goals for the students in the class, just to create that culture of feedback in general.
Yeah, I think it's really important, because the more I thought about it, it's like, I'm not gonna send Kristen an email and say, wow, Max's teacher is absolutely amazing, they're the best, necessarily, unless, but it's,
supposed to.
but, it's you
Someone's gonna
get this
ask
end of the
for
spectrum
feedback.
feedback, and you
Right.
get that end of the
Right.
spectrum of feedback, and that's the minority, and it's like, where's all that information in the middle? And I do think it would be valuable, just like we need that feedback from the community, so. But I also see what you're saying, it's not the right spot, it is, you're on the right track.
So we're gonna table this one for another meeting.
Clean copy.
Clean copy.
Alright, got it.
We have a first reading for JICD, the Student Conduct, Discipline, and Due Process.
So unfortunately, we are still needing to push off any policies to do with discipline. because we have a brand new state statute and we worked on it this summer as a leadership team. And we thought we were finished, but Dean brought back some more changes to us. And then further suggested, which I wholeheartedly agree with, looking at all of our discipline policies and see if we can condense them into one comprehensive policy.
So
So we're not ready for
we-
the last two.
and Dean working on that.
Yes.
I say we, you,
Yes,
and Dean working on it, okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so do we wanna pull those off until we get,
we can,
until Dean and the administration has their opportunity?
something to present to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more
So
sense.
it's just slide them out. Alright, that brings us to informational. I do have an item I wanna add. Concord has invited us.
That was on my list.
That was on your list,
Yeah.
okay, so I'll let you have it then.
No, it's fine.
Concord has invited us, the problem is I didn't write the date down, so I have to. The
27th.
27th, Concord has invited the Deerfield School Board to Concord High School to have a walk around the building with them and a brief tour. So that was, I believe, scheduled for 5:30. It was 5:30. Patty's gonna send an email.
I did send an email, I just don't remember, did I put the time in it? Does everyone have it?
Does this stem from the presentation that they gave to, sorry,
No, never mind.
does it stem from the presentation they gave to us about what they're doing, how they're doing things? And that's,
Yes.
okay.
Said yes,
And I think
after, when they came, they said we would love to have you come here, and then Kathleen picked on that immediately and said, don't forget, we wanna show you our school and have, so it's not a joint meeting, but we will be posting it as a meeting because you'll all be together. So she'll be posting it as a Concord meeting, I'll be posting it as a Deerfield meeting, location will be at the high school.
Be a good opportunity for those of us that haven't been there to walk about and see what Concord has to offer to our kids.
Are we gonna take the bus there or?
There's nowhere to drive.
Your camper.
I mean, we could certainly fit 5 people in a pickup truck, but
Can you take the coffee camper and have
Yeah.
coffee on the way?
Unfortunately, it's a towable, so you're out of luck. That would
I would also
violate
say,
some DOT,
okay.
regs and stuff.
you know, Kristen and Brian and any of the other administrative team who would like to join us, you're more than welcome to. By no means am I.
Not exclusive.
Unfortunately, I won't be able to make it, but I have toured the school. I can't
Believe
wait for you to
that.
see it, I can't wait for you to see CRTC. That's,
It's at 5:30.
thank you, thought so. So can everyone make it, I just wanna let,
No, and I responded, I'm gonna be on the town, and
I know, me too, I'm really
Heart
bummed.
wrench.
We could probably have our own tour from Principal Reardon,
Okay,
that way be
well,
fun.
if you could,
For you
raise
and I?
that for me.
Alright,
Are you pulling strings for that?
maybe. He doesn't work for me anymore, so he doesn't owe me anything, but he's still a good guy, I know he'll do it.
Awesome. Alright, so I will be available, Nate's available, Jeff will be available,
Pending volleyball games.
Okay. And Andy?
It'll be cutting it close, but yeah.
Alright.
How long does it take to get there? Like 30, 40?
Depends on where you live.
Take that
You have
bus.
to ask that question.
Take that bus, it's like 4.5 hours.
I'm sure that was a layup.
Alright, that was the only thing I had. Did you have anything else informational, Patty?
I did not.
Okay, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, I apologize.
Not at all.
That brings us to our final round of public comments. We still have some public in the room. Do you folks have any additional comments? Seeing none, all right. Per NHRSA 91A3 2KI, we are going to be going into.
No, K and L. Sorry, it's an L.
Those lowercase letters. I couldn't even tell on my
Glad I got
computer.
that. That's right.
I know it's a lowercase letter, but I'm a Frenchman. I'm sorry, per NHRSA 91A3 2KL, I prefer motion to go to non-public.
Second,
All right, requires a roll call. Andy?
Yep.
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, all right, it is, what do we got?
7:43.
7:43, folks, we're non-public. Thank you very much for coming.